Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Welcome back to Tipsy Casting. I'm Jen, and this is my co-host Jess. Thank you all so much for tuning in again this week. We're so excited to welcome one of our friends, the wonderful and talented casting director, Amanda Lenker Doyle, to Tipsy Casting.
Amanda is a self-proclaimed treasure hunter obsessed with all things shimmery and bright. She has dedicated her life to the hunt for gems, jewels, and actors. An award-winning casting director, Amanda has been working in film and television casting for over 17 years. In 2022, her short film, Please Hold, was nominated for an Academy Award in the live-action short film category. Some additional favorite credits to date include our #J, which swept Sundance and South by Southwest in 2021, Blackish and The Muppets for ABC, Zack and Mia for Netflix, and Wayne, streaming now on Amazon Prime.
In addition to working as an independent casting director and producer, Amanda is now serving as the director of casting relations at tech startup Castability, where she is thrilled to have a new venue to showcase and source actors. Amanda believes that every actor should have an opportunity to shine, and she can't wait to see what beautiful gems she digs up. Now grab a cocktail
Or a mocktail.
and enjoy. We're good. Okay.
Hello,
Hi,
Amanda. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, friends?
Good.
Good.
We're very excited to have you. You are no stranger to podcasts as you co-host your own on the Castability front. So we're very excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Obviously, I feel like when we first hop on and you're not recording, like that's the really great stuff for the intro. You know what I mean? It's like what were we talking about? Everything, and it was like already juicy. So I'm really excited to be. I was telling my friends that I was like begging you guys to do this one because it's like really fun and very different than the Castability podcast, which feels like I feel like it's very like professional, and I'm trying to like discover something for our listeners every episode. And this is like I did get my glass of wine. I do have the bottle sitting next to me as well in case I need to refill.
Love
I will
it.
say, I am a lightweight, so.
Don't worry.
Really?
It was quite funny last week. Jess was drinking limoncello, and by the end, she's like, "I finally get tipsy casting."
That was the first time that you've ever been actually tipsy?
I think so. I mean, it was very
How responsible of you.
I know. I will say there was one time I had gin that I was drinking that I was like, by the end, I was like, I'm feeling pretty good.
That's when you should start, frankly, like the conversation.
Once we're on glass number 2, we're ready to go.
Right. I love the idea of like, okay, listen, anything might be said. Because, we're always so afraid to say things. And I feel like it's a constant, like, there's a sensitivity to like what we do. Obviously, there's like a lot of it's confidential. It's very difficult to speak about, our jobs without feeling like we're going to get in trouble, frankly. So, I love the idea of like, let's put us in a situation where we might actually get in trouble, but who cares? That's where we are in the world right now. It's like, we're like in this space now where it's just like, honestly, who cares? Like, let's just talk about what we want to talk about.
It's funny. I was telling Jen, we were planning our next few episodes, and we're like, okay, so Amanda's coming on, and what are we going to talk about? You know what? This is just going to be a bitch fest in the best possible way.
That's exactly what I want, though. I'm so stoked. First of all, we should cheers. Okay.
Yeah. So what are you drinking exactly?
So I have a bottle of Merlot. Because I used to love Pinot, but I became like randomly like allergic to it in a way. It was very strange. I don't know what happened, but it's Josh.
I love Josh. It's a great brand.
Josh
Jess,
is one
what
of the
are you drinking?
We went to. Used to go to.
I'm consuming my alcohol a different way today.
Okay.
I recently invested in a shaved ice contraption that attaches to my standing mixer. So I made a little pod that it's pureed, freshly squeezed water or juiced watermelon infused with Dos Hombres mezcal.
Nice.
And because it's like over 90 degrees, probably 96 in the valley, it is time to break out the shaved ice.
Wow.
That's so bougie. I love it.
That
Jen,
is.
Jen, you're drinking wine. I saw it.
I have wine. I have a cab today because, like I was telling you guys earlier, I have to be up at 6 a.m. tomorrow and it's already 9 p.m. here. So I was like, can't go too hard because I have to teach a class, get to another city in the UK and do all that stuff tomorrow. So I was like, I'll just stick with wine.
Perfect.
Amazing.
I'm here for it. Also,
Well,
I forgot to mention I topped this with tahini, so it's got a little bit of spice to it.
You were killing it.
I'm here for the summer.
I love
Cheers.
it.
Seriously. Okay. But let's cheers though. And
Yeah.
okay, so cheers. Let's
Yeah.
go all the way to the camera and all the way and cheers. And then you're supposed to look at each other in the eyes from per my friend
Me
Oscar
too.
from England. Okay, and then we take a sip. Okay, Slancha. Okay. So
My spoonful.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're so happy to have you. And
jumping in.
honestly, I was telling Jess before you came on, similar to me and Jess, I don't really know you that well. I feel like a horrible part of our community that I was like, I need to go look her up. I was like, I don't even know what she's done. Like, I know you guys are quite tight, if I'm correct. Like, you guys are pretty
Yeah.
close friends. So this will be a discovery for Jen, which I'm excited about. I always love,
Oh, it's
love
like
getting to
I
know
love
people
that.
better.
I know. Well, and I too, I feel like because I was on, so Jessica and I met on when we both served on the board of CSA. I was on the board of CSA for 7 years, I think.
Oh, bless you.
I think.
God, and you
Thank
survived.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much
That's
for saying
amazing.
that. I really appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's that, it's a volunteer position. It's a very difficult thing to do. So, and to the current board members and past board members, we all appreciate you and salute you. But yes, I was on the board for 7 years. Jess was on for 1 term, I think, or 2 terms with me.
2 terms, 4 years. Or
2
it's
terms
like
with
1
4
and a
years.
half technically, because April was
Right.
on it and then left very soon after she was elected. And so I ended up coincidentally taking her spot based on votes, which was funny.
Wow.
Yes, I do remember that. We were like, oh, that would be, let's have Jess. So we became friends then and have remained friends, but have obviously, I've gotten even closer, over the past few years over the course of this like insane situation that we're all finding ourselves in. We're all just like really leaning on each other hard right now, because it's the Wild West out there. So, but yeah, I feel like I know of everyone, all the casting professionals out there because of my time on the board, but I don't,
Yeah.
I'm so excited to get to know you better, Jen, because
I
like,
know.
if Jess likes you, I love you by default because like she has excellent
Same.
taste, obviously.
I love that.
Yeah, so it's so great to be here. Yeah, it's so great to be here, and I'm thrilled to be able to do this with you. And thank you for having me.
Of course.
Love
Thanks
it.
for
We're so
joining
excited.
us.
So
Good. Sorry.
So
I'll edit this.
wagging at
I'm
all?
gonna edit this out. Really, I'll edit out. But P.S. I'm delayed for some reason. So just so you know, there might be some talking over. I can tell already. Just so you know.
Got it.
we'll adjust
We'll
it.
edit it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. Okay. So what are we talking about? Where do we start?
Yeah.
I think is the better question.
I mean, Jen, what do you want to know about Amanda as far
Yeah,
as like
okay,
her
so
journey? Because I think that's
yeah, I think so first of all, I would love to know like give me the Amanda story. Like where are you from? How'd you get into casting? Are you like a local like Jess? Are you from California or did you implant? Like no.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're from the Southeast, right?
Yes and no. So I grew up in Denver, Colorado, actually. So I grew up there, and then I moved to Nashville to go to college. So I was in Nashville from like 18 to 26 years of life, and
Got it.
so that's like how I kind of got into. I feel like as an adult, I grew up in the South, so I feel very Southern. A lot of people say like, "Oh, you feel so Southern," but yeah, so I have a lot of roots there. But yeah.
Got it. Okay, great. So I'm from Ohio, Central Ohio. I grew up doing like community theater as like an actor, and then I went to Ohio University, and I frankly, I got into USC film school, but my dad was like, it's so expensive. It was like, I think at the time it was like $60,000 a year. And he was like, and I also got into OU, and which was $15,000 a year at the time. And so in state. And so I was like, he was like, if you go to OU, you can take your car. And I was oh, please go to OU. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll go to OU. But not fine, because it wasn't. See, okay, this is already bad, you guys. I already feel like I'm saying things that I shouldn't say. But no, but if you're going to trying to be a filmmaker, the difference between Ohio University and Athens, Ohio, and USC is massive. But I went to OU, and I wanted to be a performance major, but my dad was like, maybe you should not be a performance major. And I was like, okay, Dad, whatever. So I was a telecommunications major, like a film production major. And I minored in classical civilizations and theater.
Wow.
So because I was a theater minor, I wasn't able to perform in main stage shows. Those were reserved for the majors. So I ended up doing a few performances in some of like the smaller productions, like I did a radio play, I did some of the black box productions, and then I fell into stage management because that was something that I was allowed to do as a minor. So I stage managed a lot of like the bigger shows, and I would say after my first year, I met this group of people that are essentially my family today. Like they were all TCOM, or there was a master's program that was for a film program for the master, like that you could get your master's in like the same time as the undergrad. And this group of my friends, that I found in my second year, we were producing stuff for the local television station called Athens Video Works, and we were doing like shows and all sorts of stuff. And we had in our group we had like two DPs, three DPs, or two DPs, and like camera department. We had a producer who's now a very like famous producer. We had an editor, an incredible editor, and two directors that were, have become directors through different pathways. And at one point, our producer friend, who now lives in Georgia with me, like with us, like we moved to LA together back in 2006, and we moved here together. At one point he said to me, he's like, I was like kind of being a producer just by default. And he looked at me and he was like, why don't you be our casting director? And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, everybody in the School of Theater, you could easily identify who would be right for what role. I feel like you'd be great as our casting director. Why don't we call you our casting director? And I was like, great. So John identified that in me, and I ran with it, and because I loved it and it made a lot of sense. I knew I didn't want to go into acting once I left school, because I had found like this in between position between like my super type A personality and my love for acting, and I just felt really right. And so I pursued that as soon as I got out to LA, and was on the ground and trying to figure it out, essentially. So I started in commercial casting. I got my first job. It was really hard to get a job. My first job, I interviewed all over the place and didn't get, placed anywhere. My very first interview was at William Morris. It was before it was William Morris Endeavor. And this is the place to tell this story. Oh my God, you guys.
Yes.
So it was wild. I went into their offices. I was 22, I'd just gotten there. And I went into their offices, and the interview was a series of tests. So the first test was a typing test to see how fast I could type. And it was on this like old archaic like desktop computer. It wasn't even like an Apple computer, like one of those like colorful Apple computers. It was like an IBM, and it was like a monster machine. And so I sat down and I was like, oh, okay. And I like typed via the prompts, like you're supposed to type whatever is like, and it was like, it like C++ programmed. Like it was like the original Matrix, like, you know what I mean? And so I like did my typing test. Okay, I passed that, fine. Okay, oh, well, congratulations, you've passed your typing test. So now we're going to send you in to meet with the head of HR, and you're going to have a talk with him. And then if you pass that test, we're going to send you to a desk to meet with one of the agents. And I was like, okay, cool. So I go to meet with HR, and he was the biggest character I've ever met. I don't know his name. I don't know who he was. Couldn't point him out in a crowd today. Have no idea who this guy was, but he was insane. And he was like, okay, so I just have to make sure that you're okay with them throwing things at you. Like, sometimes they throw pencils and staplers and, things like flying at your face. Like, we just have to right now get that, you have to like sign a waiver to make sure that you're okay with that. And
The
if you're okay with
HR
that,
person said
the
this to you.
HR person at William Morris, verbatim, I will never forget it, said that to me.
Oh
And I
my
was like,
gosh.
and I just wanted a job. Like, I just wanted to like get a job in the industry that I was trying to get into. And so I was like, yeah, I mean, okay, sure. Like, and that's like, I guess I'll just like be really aware of my surroundings and duck, like if I have to. And so he was like, great, okay, we're going to send you to meet with an agent. Just sit over there for 20 minutes and I'll make sure she's ready for you. Again, I have no idea who this agent is. I couldn't tell you who it was. And I've asked Allie, our friend Allie, because like she knows everybody and knew everybody back then too. And I tried to like ask her who she thought it was. And she's like, oh God, I have no idea. So, and it's better that I don't know, frankly. Who it was, because the story gets better. So then I go down to her desk, and I think at the time, well, the building was in Beverly Hills, and it was like separated. So I had to like walk into a second building or something. Like, I don't remember. But I sit down. She's lovely. She's quite nice. She represents actors. I'm sorry, excuse me. She represents rappers as actors. So Ludacris was one of her clients. So I guess if you did some research, you could probably figure out who this is. This is 2006. And she goes, and so I'm just like, no offense to rappers as actors, because like, Common's pretty good. Like some of them are pretty good. Most stuff is really good, actually. But I was like immediately offended, like on behalf of like actors. Because I was just like, okay, that's kind of like, I was like, okay, fine, whatever. Okay. I was like, we had a great interview and she was very kind. She looked at me like up and down a couple times, and she was like, now you're going to have to go shopping. And I was like, I mean, okay. And she was like, don't go shopping yet though. Like insinuating that she's not going to hire me. She's like, didn't want me to spend the money until she actually hired me. But she's like, yeah, you're going to need different clothes. And I was like, okay. And then she's like, and also, so I just like to give you an idea of what the job looks like. You're going to come in. You're going to need to see every movie that's out in theaters, because Luda calls every Friday to ask what he should see for research. And you're going to need to know, and you're going to need to be able to speak to everything. And I was like, okay, great. Sure. I did not get that job. And thank God, because that was.
What's so crazy is I have a friend who has a very similar story, and with a producer who was like, she was quite young, interned with this production company. And then she was working for this one producer who was female. And I was like, I don't get why it's constantly females telling other females how they should dress in this world. But she said the same thing. She was like, I'm an intern. I'm living off no money. I'm trying to live in LA, all this kind of things. And this woman kept coming up. She said it was a weekly thing where she was like, you need to dress better. And she was like, I can barely afford rent. I'm going to H&M trying to find like the best, cheapest clothes I can. And yet this woman who makes probably like, a good 6 figures at least is like, come on, like up your game. And she's like, I'm an intern. And she was like, I've never been so offended in my life that, here I am trying my best and I'm doing all this work for free for the company. And this woman and I actually know who she was talking about, and I won't call her out, but she is like not a very good producer. And so it's like she literally is like like trying to like up, say, oh, you need to do better when, my friend was probably 10 times better at her job than she'll ever be. So it is so weird that that's a thing in our industry, because I feel like we're such a casual industry. Like, I don't even know. Like, I remember like when I had to like buy my first like blazer, I was like, I'm so used
I
to wearing just
know.
jeans and a t-shirt every day or yoga pants to the office.
Yeah. Dude, I know. And it's like, listen, like at a certain point, sure, like y- I can appreciate how your wardrobe is an expression of like your artistry and yourself, but like that's different. Like that's like they're asking us to wear blazers, like right? It's just like okay. She
Yeah.
actually said you're going to need to go to what was the store she said? Like Lane Bryant or something, and like or like yeah,
Like an express or something like that back in the
21-year-old
day.
delayed Brian.
I was like okay.
That's funny.
I don't know. Anyways, it was an experience that I will like literally never forget. It was literally my first interview in any aspect of like the industry at all. I was working at Nordstrom to like, pay my rent at the time.
Yeah.
And I made more money at Nordstrom at the Grove in like the 3 months that I was there as I was like transitioning into the industry than I did for the first like 6 years of my job, my career in casting. Like I made more
Wow.
money at Nordstrom.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also had to
That's
pay to
I
like
hear
park
ya.
every day.
I think I'm probably still making money before I got into casting than I have in the last 15 years.
Yeah, dude, it's pretty gnarly. We can also talk about that. But yeah, so then I got then I think I interviewed with a really a commercial agent. That was a really gnarly experience too. She was not nice and took a call like during our interview. It was like so rude. And I was like, so the end of the William Morris story is that I at one point, and I don't remember, I think the HR guy who said it to me, but he was like, well, you're really green, but I'm going to set you up to meet with the agent. And I was like, okay. And then I got in my car after it was all said and done. And I called my mom and I was like, Mom, they said I was really green, but I don't know. Maybe I'll get this job. Like, what does green mean? And she goes, oh, honey, if you don't know what green means, that means you're really green. Okay, whatever, so yeah, so that was the end of that story. But then I ended up getting a job with Ava Shevitt, who's a big commercial casting director, and she owned her own studio over in Santa Monica. And I got that job in 2000, and I think I was like, well, I had quit Nordstrom because I was like, I need to focus on trying to get a job in the industry. And then I was like driving to Starbucks one morning. My whole apartment situation when I first got there too was absolutely horrendous. Like the whole thing was just terrible. Um, I wanted to live next to our friends from college who had landed in Hollywood at like Fountain and June. And I went to live in their building. But the guys that like owned the building, we got there with my truck and they were like, oh yeah, that apartment's not available anymore. And we were like, oh, okay, well, this is in Hollywood, this apartment. And I was working at the Grove. And they were like, we have another property in the valley. It's not that far. And I was like, I mean, okay. And so they sent me to Woodman and Oxnard. And that's where, if you know LA at all, that's where I landed. And at one point the building caught on fire, like the apartment next to mine caught on fire and the alarm didn't go off. And I woke up in the middle of the night because there were lights in my room and the lights woke me up and I opened my front door and there was just smoke billowing down the hallway and like into our apartment. And I like ran out with the cats. And then another time there was a gunfight like right on the sidewalk in front
Oh
of
my
my
gosh.
window.
So, welcome to LA.
Welcome to Los Angeles. And I had to drive to the Grove to work, which was a terribly long drive from Woodman and Oxnard to the Grove. But it was a whole mess. But anyway, my first job in casting was then in like I think the end of 2006, early 2007. I got this job with Ava, and I was there until no, it must have been 2006 because then I was there until 2000, the end of 2008. when that recession happened, and she couldn't keep me on staff anymore, and she knew I wanted to work in theatrical casting, and she said to me, she's like, honey, I can't keep you on anymore. I'm so sorry. But what I can do is get you an internship with Sharon Bialy, if you'd like. And I was like, oh, I love that. And this was before the internship thing fell apart. Because Sharon had been like her assistant at one point. And so I jumped in on an internship at Bialy Thomas and Associates, met all of them, and then they hired me for pilot season in 2008, I believe. And I did that was when I did the first 6 of The Walking Dead with them. And we were doing a pilot called 187 Detroit, or Detroit 187. They flopped it, whatever it was. I can't remember. And then they were doing season 2 of Lie to Me and something else at the time. So it was like a real baptism by fire. Like it was wild. Like it was work from 7 a.m. until, midnight every night. And it was crazy. And then from there, I'll go back and tell my favorite casting story because it comes from that time. But from there, I was with them for about a half a year, and then things slowed down, so they couldn't keep me on anymore as an assistant. And I jumped into Alexis and Christine's office. So I was with Kazera Shevchenko for almost 7 years. And then I partnered with my friend Chrissy Fiorelli Ellington, and I was with her for 5 years, and now I'm on my own.
Yay. Love that. Love that. Okay, so what's your favorite casting story? Tell us.
Okay, so I have 2. I have one with Chrissy, but my first one, the one that's like, really that I tell everybody because it's so, and I want to be really careful not to be dismissive of Sharon and Sherry and their, and what they did for on The Walking Dead, because it was like astounding. Like to watch them work is astounding. They're incredible. But what happened was, so we, I'm just the assistant. Like I'm at a desk in the hallway. Like we were on the Fox lot at the time. I think because of Lie to Me was on the Fox lot. And so they had an office like already established on the Fox lot. The AMC, or I'm sorry, Walking Dead was obviously for AMC. So we were just already in their pre-existing Lie to Me offices doing this job. And I was sitting at a desk in the hallway, and then Sharon and Sherry had an office. We were in building 310, if you're familiar. Like at the corner, right? And then when you walk down the hallway, and then Gohar and Russell were in another office next to them. And then I was again at a desk in the hallway. And, I was just like, I doing all the assistant stuff. So at the time we were recording on little Sony Handycams 2 chips. And then I was taking the chip, downloading the footage, and building DVDs. And we were couriering DVDs like from the courier on the Fox lot over to whoever needed to get the DVDs. Now for this particular project, I mean, at that time, a lot of the sessions were in person because the producers were right there. So they were coming, to our office to have sessions for like the guest cast and Lie to Me, et cetera. But for Walking Dead, Frank Darabont lived on the east side of town, and he was basically not available to come to the office for sessions. So the direction was for us to put everyone on tape for him. And then we were building DVDs every day. I was building DVDs every day of the people that we liked, and sending them over to Frank that night. And then his process was that he told us he would wake up in the morning and watch while he was on his treadmill. so that was the process. And as we all know, those of us that participated in pilot season, as it was, pilot season was basically January to March. It was like 3 months of torture, for lack of a better word. We were working 7 a.m. to like midnight or later most days. And on this one, Frank had done The Mist with Thomas Jane, and he really wanted Thomas to be the lead, to be Rick Grimes. And it makes a lot of sense if you have read the graphic novels, if you've seen any of the art from the original Walking Dead. He looks just like Thomas Jane, like literally. Like there's no getting around it. Like if you look at it, like look it up right now. Like it's like, oh, that's literally Thomas Jane's face. Like how weird. And Frank was like, I want Thomas Jane. And Thomas was on a show called Hung at the time that we were waiting to see if it was going to get picked back up, and it did. So he was, and at the time you couldn't do multiple television shows because that was like they were in conflict with each other. You were exclusive to one show at a time. So Thomas was not available because he was on Hung, and Frank was just like, I want Thomas. And because this is like his first foray into television too. He was a film guy. And so he didn't really understand, or he understood it, but didn't like accept it, the idea that he couldn't have who he wanted. And so it was just not possible at the time. And so everybody we read, he was, inadvertently comparing to what he imagined Thomas would do, because again, he knew him really well from The Mist, etc. And so we were reading and reading and reading people because he was essentially saying no to everybody. Because he wanted Thomas so bad. And we read and read and read. And I don't even know. This was probably around my birthday or maybe later. My birthday is March 1st. So I had a pilot season birthday, which was terrible. Like one year I remember working until like 3:00 in the morning on my birthday. But a quick sidebar. Obviously we've all met like so many amazing actors in our time, and it's been such a wild ride. And like, we don't get super starstruck because we're so used to it. But like, I was really young, and I was obsessed with Saved by the Bell, obviously, growing up. Obsessed with Mark
As we all were.
Yeah, of course. And I had the Saved by the Bell board game growing up, and I knew that Mark Paul and I shared a birthday. He's 10 years older than me, but his birthday is also March 1st. And I had mentioned it in passing to Sharon at one point, and we ended up bringing him in for The Walking Dead to read. And Sharon told him. And then she brought me out, and she was like, hey, Amanda, come here for a second. And I was like, at my desk in the hallway. And I'm like, what's up? What's happening? What's going on? And it's like, Mark is right there. And I was like, oh, hello. He was like, I just wanted to say happy birthday. And I was like, oh my God. I thought I was going to die. It was incredible. So that was the gift that Sharon Bialy gave me at one point. But and then, okay. And then, okay, we're back. And then, okay. So we're reading everybody in town, including and not limited to Mark Paul Gosselaar. And these scenes are like 10 minutes long. They're incredibly like, it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff to watch, a lot to get through every day. And so, we've read a lot of people at this point, and Gohar and I were the only ones left in the office that night, and we're just sitting there trying to come up with who we were going to read on Monday to put times out at like 11 p.m. because we had to, and we're sitting there spitballing ideas, and she goes to me, ugh, I love Love Actually. And I was like, oh my God, same. I watch it all the time. She's like, what about Andrew Lincoln? And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's try it. She's like, great. So she emailed Markup and Froggatt, I think it was at the time that he was with. I don't remember. And on Monday, we come in, we receive his tape. He's incredible. I burn him to the DVD that I'm making. And by the way, this is one of those like moments where like, they were like, you know how to use iDVD, right, Amanda? And I was like, oh yeah, totally. And I like did not know how to use iDVD. I didn't know how to do anything. I was just like, it's like a fake it till you make it situation. So I was like, yeah, sure. So I had quickly taught myself how to use iDVD at the beginning of this process. And my process was to just write over everybody from the previous day and like, move there. And I was burning 2 of each and keeping like dupes on a little spindle on my desk. But like, it was like deleting and then like retyping their names and like throwing their file in and like, and then burning it and then running it to the courier. And so I put Andrew on Monday's DVD. And then on every Friday, Frank and Sharon would hop on Skype, and they used Skype at the time and talk to each other, even though Frank's like on the east side and we're on the Fox lot on the west side. And, I'm like listening to the conversation just so I know like what I'm doing tomorrow, kind of thing. And I'm just sitting at my desk quietly listening. And then I hear Frank go, ugh, you must really like this Andrew Lincoln guy. And we were like, we love him. Why? Or I'm standing in the hallway quietly. And she's like, we love him. Why? And he was like, because he's been on every DVD since Monday. And I was like, holy shit, I'm getting fired. Like, what did I do? I fucked, because you're so young and you're like, you mess something up and you're like, oh, it's immediately like you're going to get fired, even though Sharon Cher would never like yell at me. Like, they're the kindest people ever, but like, you just are, it's built into you to like freak out.
Mm-hmm.
So I must have been standing outside her door because I remember running back to my desk and starting to pop in the DVDs. So I pop in the Monday DVD. Okay, there he is. Fine. He's on Monday. Then I pop into the computer, the Tuesday DVD. And I was like, he's not there. I don't understand. And then I was like, what is that? I don't know what I did. And so I ran down the hallway to the writer's room, just like at the end of the hallway. And I was like, can I borrow this? They had like a TV on the cart, like we did when we were in elementary school, and they had with a DVD player. And I was like, can I borrow this? And they were like, yeah. And I like pulled it down to my desk and I plugged it in. And I was like popping DVDs in. And what I realized was that his tape was stuck like above the menu. So when you popped a DVD in, you had to watch the entire read before you could get to the menu for the next day.
Oh.
So I forced Frank to watch 10 minutes of Andrew Lincoln every day for 4 days.
Wow.
And then I hear him go, fuck it, let's test him.
Wow, what a great story.
I want to clarify that Andrew Lincoln got himself this job by being an incredible actor and then coming and killing it in the test and being amazing. And, all of that.
But also,
all that has to be said.
I think actors forget that things like this happen. Like even though you didn't know you were fighting for him, but there are times where like, even though like, who knows? Like if you didn't put him on that DVD like 4 times, he might have seen him and been like, oh yeah, moving on, we'll test somebody else, or we'll wait for Thomas Jane or something like that. Like there are random things that happen, because I'm a huge believer that every actor who ends up with the role has always been destined to have the role. Like no matter what happens, no matter who gets offered it beforehand, or if somebody falls out at the last second, the role, whoever ends up on screen, it was always meant to be them. And so I agree. Like, I think it's Andrew's talent and everything that got him there, but there are so many things that could have changed this trajectory that he wouldn't have gotten the role.
Completely. I always say like it was like the universe working through me, like I was just like, I was like this young, dumb, like completely like, whatever assistant. And, for me, it was a real, and reflecting on that, it was just like, okay, you're right, Jen. Like everything that happens for a reason and is meant to happen. And the things that are for you will come to you, because that's how the universe works. Right. And so that's my favorite casting story.
Yeah,
I have to say, not to do 2 back-to-back stories, but one of my personal favorite stories of yours is your Wayne story.
That's my second favorite story, and I'm just like, I just feel like I'm talking at you guys as I'm drinking and getting a little.
No. I'm excited to hear
well,
Wayne. Who's Wayne? First of all, Wayne's a great name. I love anyone with a Wayne in it. I'm in. Like, sign me up.
So Wayne is the name of our show that Chrissy and I cast. It was an incredible show that was just such a wonderful experience. It was for YouTube Premium at the time, and it's now on like Hulu or Netflix. We did 1 season of it, and it was just a wonderful experience. From top to bottom. So when we had done a show with 2 of the EPs that were on Wayne for Amazon previously, a pilot, and then they came to us and they were like, we really want you to, cast this one for us, but it's going to be, you're going to have to fight for it. And we were like, okay. And so we found out who we were meeting against, and we were like, oh shit, cause I think
say it?
actors too. Yeah, sure. Cause it doesn't have any effect on her, she's incredible. And then that's why we were like, oh shit. It was Wendy O'Brien. So yes. We found out we were meeting against Wendy O'Brien, and we were like, well, we're not going to get this job. Cause like, she's awesome. And so when I was like, you know what, Chrissy, this is back when I think 2017 or 2017, early 2017. We were like, we're going to have to like really do the dance on this one. So Christy was like, all right, let's do it. And we like pulled a bunch of like images. We pulled images for like tonal images for like set design. Like we went like hard. And we obviously pulled a bunch of names for each role and picked like pictures and like printed out the resumes. I made an entire binder. I like went to Kinko's and like made a bound book to take to our meeting because I wanted this job really bad. It was a great script. And we were desperate. We not only do we want this job, we want to work with these producers that we worked for before, but like we need a job, and it's just like, and how do we beat Wendy O'Brien? Like that's impossible. She's incredible. And so we went hard, and I had just seen a screener of Sing Street. If you're familiar with that film, it's an Irish film and it was not out in theaters in the US yet. My friend Jordan had a screener of it and he was like, Manders, come over. You got to watch this movie. It's incredible. And it's like takes place in like the 80s and it's like about a group of like high schoolers that start, or maybe even like they're young high schoolers, and they start a rock band because Ferdia Walsh Pila's character is like in love with this girl. And it's the sweetest movie ever. And after I watched it with Jordan, I was like, oh my God, these kids are so good. And I literally remember saying to him, Ferdia is incredible. Ferdia is the male lead in Coda, by the way, for those listening. He's incredible. But I'm really into like the kid that plays all the instruments, who's Mark McKenna. And he was like, yeah, he's great too. I was like, he's great. And so Chrissy and I get this job and we're coming up with ideas to take to the meeting. And we take everybody, we take everybody who's appropriate. And there's not very many, like, it's hard to take ideas for what's supposed to be like a 17-year-old lead, because it's just difficult to take like big ideas to a meeting because like there aren't a ton of famous people who are 17. So I've included Ferdia and Ian and everybody else in Sing Street and Mark specifically in the book. But I was like really excited about Mark. And I remember talking about Mark in our meeting and like, I was just like super stoked about this. If you haven't seen Sing Street, maybe I can get you a screener. You should watch it, whatever. So we jump into the process of casting and we end up, so the show takes place in Brockton, Massachusetts, and it's a very like shit kicker. This kid has like a slight Boston-ish accent, and we were reading on the ground. We were reading kids in Los Angeles, and Chrissy was like, at one point, she turned to me and she was like, "I feel like these kids can't even like open their own soup can," and I was like, "Yeah, like this is not the crowd for this role." So we ended up, we reached out to Mark obviously in the very beginning to his agent over in the UK, and we asked for him to self-tape, and then we had to chase it for like 3 weeks, like 3.5 weeks. We chased his tape because it just wasn't coming, and we were like, where's Mark's tape, whatever. But we ended up testing. So we get Mark's tape finally. He's great. Give him some direction. He does it again, and then the creator was like, yeah, I like him. We had to talk him into it a little bit because he wanted a different physicality for the lead. But he was like, yeah, okay, let's test him. And we ended up testing him and another kid over from the UK because those kids were the ones that they're like, Samuel was British and Mark is Irish. And they were the ones that could like really do the accent. Like, cause I feel like, that's where the people of Boston came from. Like, physically in the world when they immigrated. So so we ended up testing 2 kids from the UK, and we flew them out to LA, and it was a YouTube show. So we had access to the YouTube stages over on the West Side. And, I said to Chrissy, I was like, I want to do, this test right. Like I want Devin to shoot it instead of like me. I used to run camera, and I was like, I just want it to look really good. And so
for the record, Devin is her husband who was a DP.
Yes, Devin is my husband.
Okay.
Cinematographer.
Yeah.
And so we had Devin shoot the chemistry and the chemistry read and the screen test over at the YouTube stages, and it was beautiful. And for the girl who plays opposite Mark in the show, Sierra Bravo is her name. Hold on, sorry.
I love her.
My husband is standing outside my window. Okay, great.
In a creepy
Um,
way, or
no, they're getting out of the car and it's just they're talking. In a creepy way. So see, so it was so interesting because like reading the for the her name was Dell in the show. Like I think we did like 3 sessions and Sierra came in the 3rd session and I think I super embarrassingly like stood up and gave her like a full on applause like after she read because she was so good and she just understood it and it was just like it was like no there was no question. Like it was her. Like the role was hers from the very beginning. So anyway, so we're testing these 2 guys against Sierra. And so Devin comes in, we do the thing. It's beautiful. Got it all on tape. This was so we flew them both in. Sam came with his dad because he was underage, and then Mark came by himself. He's 21, so he's like alone, and he doesn't have like a working phone or anything because he's like a 21-year-old Irish kid who's in the United States like for maybe the first time. I'm not sure. And we put him up in they put him up in a hotel, etc., like over by the stages, and provided a driver for him so that he could get around. And so we do this test on a Thursday. And then the next day is Friday. And I remember I was getting my nails done or something. And it was like 3:00 and we got a call from the casting executive, Danny. And he was like, okay, so they feel like they like Mark. They obviously Sierra, like whatever. They like Mark. They want to see him be angrier. And Chrissy was like, oh no. I was like, and Chris and I were on the phone. So like, we were like, okay, great. Okay, well, let us see what we can do because he's supposed to be flying home today. Sorry. Can you hear that? Yeah.
No?
Let's just hold a second. Okay. Just little voice screaming. Okay. So they were like, we just feel like we need to see him be angrier. And Christy was like, all right, let us figure this out and we'll call you back. And they were like, okay, great. And so I'm on the phone with Chris and she's like, this is not great news. And I was like, no, I know. Because like he was scheduled this was 3:00 on Friday. He was scheduled his flight was supposed to leave at like 6:00 back to Dublin. And so she was like, Chrissy's married to an actor. He's an amazing actor. He actually, my first job with Lexus and Christine, we tested him on a pilot. And so I was like, Tate's like the connection for Chrissy and I too. Cause I remember like meeting her for the first time and I saw a picture of Tate on her desk and I was like, oh my God, is that Tate Ellington? She was like, yeah. I was like, I love him. And she was like, me too. I'm married to him. And I was like, I was like great. But like at that point, Chrissy's experience, like with, watching Tate have this like, this career, she was like, he had tested, I think 36 times for a pilot before he booked Quantico, which I believe was his first series regular. And she knew, she was like, listen, if he goes, like it's over. Like we're going to have to keep looking. We're going to have to find somebody else. Like it's not going to happen for him. If he goes home and has to like self-tape an angry or whatever, it's just not going to happen for him. They need to see it right now. And I was like, okay. And she's like, what if we call the driver that's supposed to pick him up to take him to the airport? We had his like itinerary. And she's like, what if we call the driver and we get him to reroute to your house? Because Devin still had the camera that we had rented for the test. And I lived over by LAX. Chrissy lived on the east side in his apartment again, or his hotel that he was staying at was like right by the U2 stages over on the west side. And I was like, great idea. So she's like, okay. So she put me on hold. She calls, like, she gets into it. She's doing all this. She's calling the driver. She's like, okay, got the driver. He's going to reroute to your house. I was like, great. So I'm at the nail salon. So I run home and I stand on my front lawn. I've got Chrissy in my ear the whole time. I'm standing on my front lawn and I'm waiting for him because I was like, he's going to be so confused. Why are we going into a neighborhood? Why are we stopping at a house? Not going to LAX. I'm supposed to be going to LAX because I'm supposed to be getting on a plane. And I'm standing there with Chrissy and I'm talking to and now at this point, we've got our producer like looped in as well. And we're like, oh God, our line producer. And I was like, we're like, okay. I'm like, he's not coming. He's not here, you guys. I feel like at this point, he's got to be at the airport. Like, I don't understand. Like, and collect, like, we're just making these like decisions. And all of a sudden I was like, I'm getting in the car. And Chrissy was like, get in the car. I was like, I'm getting in the car. And I was like, I yelled to Devin. I was like, this is before we had a kid. So it was just me and Devin. I was like, turn on all the lights, get the camera set up in the garage. we're going to put Mark back on tape. I'm going to get him. And Devin was like, what? And I was like, I'm going. And he was like, okay. And I hopped in my car and I drove to LAX, and I was circling for a minute because we were trying to reach him. Like, we were trying to call him and he wasn't answering his phone. And we were just like, we couldn't get a hold of him. I was like, I'm parking, and I was like, so I parked in the middle and I ran into Tom Bradley because I assumed that Aer Lingus was at Tom Bradley, which is in the international terminal at LAX. And I'm like looking for Tom. You guys, I just have my bag. I have flip-flops on. I have like not flip-flops. I have like the flip-flops that they give you at the nail salon so that your feet, your toes don't touch each other. So I'm running through Tom Bradley. I'm like, where is Aer Lingus? And I finally I look at someone. I'm like, where's Aer Lingus? And they're like, oh yeah, I think we moved that to Terminal 3. And I was like, oh, okay, great. Okay, great. And so I ran to Terminal 3 on foot in my not real flip-flops. And I run into Terminal 3, and at this point, I'm out of breath, you guys. I'm like freaking out. I'm like, we're going to miss him. He's going to get on this plane. He's going to fly away. And I'm like, where's Aer Lingus? And they're like, Terminal 2, I think. And I was like, okay. So I run to Terminal 2. And I run in, and there it is. It's right next to Delta. And I'm like, okay, there it is. I'm screaming at my producer and Chrissy in my ear. They're like, oh, okay, great. And I run up to the counter and I'm like, hello. Hi, I'm a casting director and I need you. I assume he's already through security. So I was wondering if you could just like page an actor. Could you page an actor for me and ask him to come out? We need to test him again. We need to put him back on tape. It's the difference of whether he's going to get this role or not. Like, I just really need you to page him. And this woman is just like staring at me like dead-eyed, and others have started to gather behind her at this point. And she was like, no, ma'am. And I was like, obviously you can't do that. Okay, right. Okay, so I turned around and I walked out to the platform, or to the outside area, and I was like, yo, dudes, like, I'm gonna get arrested at this point. Like, they're watching me. And my producer goes, I have an idea. And I was like, what's your idea? He's like, what if we buy you a plane ticket and you go through security, and then you just, instead of going to like your gate, you go to the gate that he's supposed to be at. And I was like, okay, great idea.
Rom-com.
Yeah. Great idea. I was like, so I'm giving the producer my birthday, and I'm giving him all the information. He's going to buy me a one-way ticket to New York, refundable or something. I don't know what he's doing here. Whatever. They didn't, at that point, they didn't care. They were invested as Chrissy and I were. So they were like, all right, here we go. And he's buying my ticket. And then Chrissy goes, wait, I have an idea. I was like, what's your idea? And she was like, okay, so Tate, again, is a working actor. At this point, he's been on Quantico, so he's Twitter verified, okay? And she's like, what if I tweet at him through Tate's account, which he will get because it's verified? And I was like, do it. And she was like, great. So she tweets, hey, at Mark McKenna, this is Chrissy. Not Tate. I'm just trying to get a hold of you because Amanda's outside. She's like literally at LAX and she's trying to get to you, but they won't let her come to you. She needs you to come out and she needs you to go back to her house with her so we can put you back on tape. And I was like, I mean, it's worth a shot. And so she tries it. We have screenshots of this tweet. And I'm standing there waiting. He's still actively buying this plane ticket. I'm waiting. And then I turn around. And Mark is walking towards me with his little, like, he's got his like sister's floral like suitcase. Cause like, he's like this 21-year-old like Irish kid. I was like, you guys, I love him. And they were like, yay. And I was like, okay. Oh, sorry, Mark. Okay. He's like, what's happening? I was like, okay, I'm going to take you back to my house and we're going to put you back on tape and we're going to they just want to see you be angrier. So like, you're going to just come with me. And he was like, all right. And I was like, okay. And so we get in the car and I called Devin. I'm like, Dev, turn on all the lights. We're coming back. I didn't want him to feel like he was going to be murdered, like I was like really like scared for this kid, even though like he at this point he knows me, but he doesn't know me well. we get home, and he knows Devin too, because Devin shot the test the previous day. So like, whatever. But we get home and we put him on tape. I put him on tape like 25, like different, we do so many takes. And then Devin cuts it together for us, really beautifully. We send it on over. And at that point it was like 9 p.m., so I fed him. And I was like, I can either take you back to they can rebook the hotel for you that you were staying at, or you can stay here if you want, because we had a guest room. And he looks around, he's like, well, I'll stay here. And I was like, are you sure? Like, you don't have to. But like, it's just like, if you want, it's like, I just want to make you as comfortable as possible. And he was like, no, it's fine. And so he and Devin spent the whole night like talking music, because Devin's a big music guy, and he has a band called Milk, and he's an incredible musician, and it was great. And then the next morning we woke up, and they rebooked him a flight for like 11 a.m. or something. And so we woke up early, and we were like, we'll take you to breakfast and then take you over to the airport. And he was like, okay, great. And we were like, anywhere you want to go
I
for
hope
breakfast?
he got the job after all this.
Oh, it's coming. He's like, I would love to go. He goes, I would love, hold on, let me see if I can do the accent. I would love to go to a diner like in Pulp Fiction. So cute. We're like, okay, yes, okay. So we took him to Pan's, if you're familiar, and it looks just like that diner in Pulp Fiction that Tim Roth and Amanda Plummer are in. And we had breakfast, and then on our way to the airport, we got the call in the car that he got the job. So I got to tell him that he got the job.
Story. In the car.
Right before he got in the car, yeah.
I love it.
I was like, oh, thank God you got the job. He was like, oh, awesome. I was like, oh, my dear. And then Jess, that was a week away from when we went over to Kilkenny. So Devin and I flew over to Dublin a week later, and I got to meet up with him and Ferdia and Ian in Dublin and celebrate Mark getting that job with them, because we were scheduled to go to this big subtitle film festival a week later. It was crazy. And it's like, it's so serendipitous, like all of these experiences have been wildly serendipitous, and like just everything,
I mean, this is like a really good, like, this should be like in a, university of like, when actors say that casting directors don't care, or like that we don't put enough effort in, like, please, this should be like lesson 101 of us caring. I mean, because I know this is an extreme example, but also like there's so many times that like similar, like I've done crazy things. You kind of like, when you really believe in something and you really want something to happen, you will go above and beyond. And it's like, can we do that with every little one-liner co-star role? No. But it's like, I think that, again, especially right now and everything that's happening, it gets so lost that we put so much effort and so much of our own hearts into people getting the jobs, that it's like, people, again, actors need to hear this, because it's like, see, like we fight hard. Like, it's not something that we take lightly, and we're just like, oh yeah, here's your 20 million choices, you pick. Like, it's
no,
there's a lot of effort that goes into all. And you know what else I would say is like the fact that you believed in him, and Chrissy, and it's like that you would go to those extents, because because both of you could have at any point been like, well, if it's if it's meant to be, it'll meant to be. If not, like we'll go with the next guy. But like the passion behind it is just like so relevant, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I think when listen, I've said this for years, but I think the reason that we're under recognized, I will say, is because we've all learned how to, for lack of a better word, manipulate the creators into believing that it was their idea, so that we can get the person cast that we feel is the best person for the job. Because we've learned over the years, certainly, and I think that this has a little bit to do with being women too, like, and that's not to take away from the men in our profession, but if we tell them who we like, they often go with the other person. So we've figured out ways to kind of I like to use the Big Fat Greek Wedding reference, like the woman is the neck and we can turn the head any direction we want. Like, we figured out a way to make them believe that it was like their idea, so that they hire the right person. like our opinion, like who the right person is.
Yeah.
And, I think what folks don't realize is how that's the joy for us is, to be able to do that for somebody and then see them get this job, see their dreams come true. We're watching, like we're the facilitators, and that sounds so cheesy and dumb, but like it's true. Like when some of these actors are booking these jobs, it's changing their lives. And
Mhm.
that is such a source of joy for us. And that is like the reason why we do this job, certainly. And why we
And I
continue to
don't
do
think
this
that's
job.
cheesy or
And
dumb,
even,
honestly. You need to like own that because like that's where again I think part of
well,
our reason we're so far behind in life is because we've been conditioned by the older generation to be like, we don't matter, we need to just be quiet, like we can't say this out loud. And it's like as soon as you start owning that this was my choice, this is what I did, and this is why that actor got the job and then won the Emmy or won the Oscar or whatever, that's what's eventually going to get casting some recognition for what they do. But because we've come
yeah.
under, a group of people who've been so reticent to be like, here's what I've given, contributed, is partly why I think casting's so far behind in all the other, production world things,
Yeah.
departments.
There's a lot to say about that. Like I facilitated this um I don't even what are we calling it, Jess? This thing for CSA while I was on the board that we were calling the archival project. And, because Devin is a DP and I have access to like, I have the ability to produce, video content really beautifully with him and his help. I was like, you know what, I used to produce the Artios Awards too. So I was, at one point we were honoring Kevin Huvain because he was like one of the first agents to represent casting directors. And it was a lovely story. And we put together a little video for him. I did with Devin. And while we were putting that video together for him, um, we I was like, oh, I can actually start shooting some of these legacy casting directors that are speaking on behalf of Kevin and morph that into like the archival project for us. And so I interviewed like Juliet Taylor and Mike Fenton and Wallace Nisita and Jane and Janet. And I have all of these amazing casting directors on tape talking about their story. One of the questions that I asked them at the end of like the interview, I had like a series of questions that I asked them, all the same questions, so that the videos kind of felt, similar. My last question was, can you define the art of casting? And every single one of them, they were like, oh, mm, mm, like they couldn't answer. And then some of them
Mm.
answered with like technicalities, like the technical job. And I was like, no. And it's because the art of curation and like it's like a taste thing is very hard to define. And I truly think that is also why there's a lack of recognition for us because we don't even know how to define what our art is, right? And so that's been one of my bigger, things that I'm kind of like leaning into trying to like get out there is like, how do we define the art of casting? How do we encourage each other to recognize ourselves as artists? Because we are. It's just not a tangible art in the same way that like a cinematographer or an editor or, an actor is. So, so yeah, I mean, it's very that conversation, the conversation about lack of recognition is like a really big deal for me. And I mean, I could talk to you guys for another hour about that. Like, and how do we fix this? Because it is a big problem. And it's a problem not just in recognizing us for award consideration and for, all of that, just to say like what you guys are doing is art, but it's a problem across the board because it's reflected in other parts of our job. We're underpaid. Um, we're often understaffed. We're not given proper staff to like do the job correctly because they want to underpay us because they think that they can do the job without us. We're facing a time where it feels like we could be easily replaced, or there's some rhetoric about us potentially being easily replaced with AI, et cetera. or by the producers. I will say this, and I've had half a glass of wine, you guys. I'm gonna say it. Oh, God, should I say
No,
it?
just say it. Just say it. Come on. Come on.
Well, the longer form deal points of the SAG negotiation came out this morning, and we have a text group that we're in that, Jen, we should just add you to so you can be a part of it. But it was texted to our text group, and we were all reading it, and I was like, they are talking about things that directly affect the way we do our job, which is completely fine. And frankly, I don't want to be involved in this conversation. Like, I don't want to be a part of these negotiations. This is not a negotiation between casting and actors. It's not a negotiation between casting and producers. This doesn't really involve us. But the fact that our position is not mentioned at all in this document, like, it is like, producers should put breakdowns out, da 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 da. Like, producers don't put breakdowns out. They're not supposed to put breakdowns out. They're supposed to hire casting directors to put breakdowns out for them. Like, there's a problem with the fact that we've essentially been erased from the conversation in regard to the thing that we do specifically, like our job.
Yeah.
When they're talking about our job. And that is not only like offensive to me, but it's also like, there's a way to say casting within like the context of these conversations without us being directly involved in the negotiating. Do you know what I mean? Because we're acting, obviously, like, I think it's implied that we're acting as agents of the producers by way of our deal with them. But like, you should still mention the position in regard to some of these things that you're talking about, because by erasing us, like, you're essentially, I don't know. It's something, and it's all connected to the fact that, like, the lack of recognition, for art. And then, it's like, our jobs are becoming unsustainable because we're not getting paid properly to like sustain these jobs. So they're facing a future, and I say they, I mean like producers and studios and et cetera, where we're going to have to go find other jobs because we can't afford to live and stay in this profession.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
think,
it's... Oh, go ahead. No, you
I
go,
was just
Jess.
going to say, I feel like, and I want to hear both of your experience as well, but I feel like when I went out on my own, there was a little bit of a false bill of goods that was sold to us as the younger
100%.
generation.
Yes.
And I think it's like, at least in terms of like, these are the boxes that you need to tick as someone that's coming out on your own. You go take your general meetings with the studios and networks. You have to have cast a pilot, been a casting director on a series, there were certain things that you had to do to be like considered legitimate and be a working casting director. And it's been 7 years since I left April Webster. Like, it's been a long time at this. I've now been on my own more than I've been with anybody, and I still don't have that stability or the entry space into the studio or network system or the streaming system or whatever it is. Like, that bill of goods is just, it's bullshit at the end of the day, because I don't know who is having those opportunities, because it's not us.
Yeah, we were sold something that didn't, and it's like, it's not their fault, I guess, like, it's just,
Yeah, it is.
it's a oh God, I
God,
love it. You guys are scorched earth.
I have lots of
Some
opinions on this.
sometimes we could say that it's their fault, but I would say, like, it's a circumstance of everything that's happened, right? Like, we had to fight for jobs, absolutely. Were Chrissy and I finally positioned to like take off, and it really felt like we were in a good place to like start rolling. Yeah. And then what happened? The pandemic, and then it all fell apart. It's really, it's like, it's brought me to tears more times than I can even like say, because it feels like we worked so hard. We worked so hard to get every job. Every job was a gift, and we knew it. and we would take $5 because they could hire someone to do it for $3. And if that person wouldn't do it, they would hire someone for no dollars. You know what I mean? And it was like, we sacrificed so much. We worked so hard, and here we are. And it's like, for what? Like, what do we do? You know, what do we do at this point? And Devin is in the same position, you
Well, to be
know?
fair, I think that what we can do is what we are doing is using our voices, because I think that like everyone else is so scared to say anything about it, or like go against,
Yeah.
like, God forbid we go against the CSA, and even, you know, like, because I got really upset last year with the CSA in terms of this whole hoarding issue and stuff. And it's like alls we get told from everyone is that like, oh yeah, you have to check these boxes, then you'll get your first thing, blah blah blah. And again, I agree with Jess. We're like, yeah, you go and you do all that. And then they're like, okay, then like you have to take me seriously now. And I've done all these things. I've paid my dues. It's not like I'm just showing up being like, hey, I'm a first time casting director. No, I've done all these things. And you should recognize the fact that like, even if you were under somebody or doing it for no money, that like this work still matters and counts. Um, but then to have no backup. So like a lot of people, and I would say this for people who maybe be listening, but like we pay into both the CSA and our union. We're one of the very few departments in our industry that have to pay into two different things, because the people who represent us in the CSA can't actually do anything because they're not a union. And it's like, so then we have our union, and really we're only in the union for like, yeah, contract negotiations and health insurance, I would say. They're not really looking out for our jobs, you know, whether it's being evenly distributed, things like that. So it's
Correct.
like
They're
we're
not, yeah.
constantly going back between these two people who are like, well, we can't really help you. Well, we can't help you. And then we're just stuck. And we're like, why are we the only people who are paying? Not even just we are paying two different organizations to represent us, and yet we get no help whatsoever. And that was when I really had kind of had enough of CSA last year, was when I was like, I verbally asked in a open meeting, like, what are you doing to help us? Because we have this problem. We're all aware of this problem. Like we are paying a reason. And it's like the entire meeting, I remember sitting there, and it's kind of a funny story. I was back home at my parents' house, and my dad was listening to the conversation, who like knows nothing about Hollywood, doesn't get it. Like, and he has no use for it. He's like, whatever, Jen, I don't really get what you do, but whatever, just be happy. And, but we're sitting there, and he's like listening to the meeting, and he's like, he's like, they're not even talking about casting. They're talking about actors and like what, like this other community. He's like, why are you in this? And I was like, I know. I was like, I don't know why I pay money to these people, because like when it finally got opened up to the general public, and I asked the question about casting and our jobs and how they were being threatened, it was silence on the, you know, on all the however many faces were on the Zoom call. And I just remember like one person kind of started chatting. I think it was our president, started chatting and was like kind of skirting around the issue. And then somebody else kind of chimed in and was like, well, it's really the studios and networks. And there's somebody on our board who is from the studio network side, who just looked like she wanted to die at that moment of like, oh God, don't put it on me. And it is like this insane world of like, they refuse to take responsibility. They'll only hire the same 7 people. Like, it's just, and yet they want to like pretend like we're all this big, like one happy family. And I'm like, you guys have no, no
Yeah.
consideration for anybody else. Like you just, I don't know. I have lots of thoughts, like I say, like, and I don't mind
Yeah.
saying them at this point, because I feel like it is quite useless in terms of it. But I think the only way to change it is to be vocal, because if we just sit in the background and we just say, that's our lot in life, you know, whatever, then that's never going to change anything. And I don't want to leave this person. I love what I do. I don't want to leave the
I
profession.
know.
I don't want to have to go get another job. Like
I
I
know.
absolutely love what I do, and I know I'm good at it. So like
Yeah.
the only way I can do it is to keep talking about it and like try to, and I'm not doing this to like take down the older generation or like whatever, but it's like, but also like if they're willing to take us down, then like I just want people to be educated that this is happening, and like you have the option of like, instead of going with somebody who has 20 projects on their slate, who's you're going to get an assistant casting your project, you could hire this younger generation of casting directors who has tons of experience, probably more knowledge of like the up and coming actors, and still get an amazing quality project. And that's my stance on it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think, I will give props to CSA for the one thing that they have been focused on doing for a number of years is creating this pathway program to bring in like skilled assistance and that sort of thing. But I have asked on a number of occasions, and I have vocalized, I've voiced this to many people within the CSA organization that yes, great, you're bringing in the next generation. Yes, we want you. We want it to be inclusive. We want to make sure everybody's represented. But like, what about the middle? Like we have no mentorship. We have no. There's no program. You see these. At least they used to be. I don't know what exists anymore. But like you used to see the directors programs and the writers
Yeah.
programs that they were like there was a spot sponsored by the studios and the networks to be like, this person will get a seat at the table. There's never been anything like that to represent for casting, where it's like 10% of our shows will be cast by a younger generation or someone who is not as established as someone who's doing 10-15 projects at the same time. And it is so shitty that we don't have that guide. We don't have anybody allowing us to break in after we've broken our backs to try to tick all those boxes.
It's a mess.
And
It's a
I
mess
would
for
go even as far
yeah.
to say is they're kind of hindering us. Like it is not even that we need the help. We're getting hindered by our own members who refuse
You
to
know,
like let go.
I don't think it's I don't know if it's necessarily like intentional or malicious. Like I know it's not malicious. It's self-preservation for those guys because they came up in a time where it was like if I don't stab this person in the back to save myself, then I'll die. And that's the sentiment. And that's the sentiment today, and then the pandemic happened and they were like, oh, fuck. No, sorry, I'm cussing. They were like, I have to take any and every job that comes to me. And if I don't, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So we take everything and we take. I don't give a shit if like the generations below me are starving. Like I can't because as a business person, and I get in trouble for saying freelance business person when I am a union member because we're not freelancers, but we are. We are by definition
Yeah.
freelancers. We have to fight for our own, we have to fight for the work and we have to, every job is, a fight. And it's like, so I, it has happened. That has happened to us. And I don't know what the solution is. I think we've spitballed with each other. Like the only solution is potentially like the union stepping in and saying and limiting the amount of jobs that one of these bigger legacy casting directors is allowed to take or is allowed to receive, fringes on. And that might be the only way to stop this, but I don't think that will ever happen. So I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
I think it's education.
I agree with you, Amanda, but I do have to say, I disagree with the part where you say stabbing someone in the back is not malicious because it is.
Well, no, stabbing someone in the back is malicious, but you're right. I guess I did say that by way of like saying I don't think it's malicious, but they're stabbing everybody in the back. Ooh.
Yes, I understand. This is the idea. Like, I understand the landscape of this industry where it was when those people started was that there were 5 studios and 5 networks and everybody had to take as much as they could because they didn't know where it was coming. And I understand that mentality and like the insecurity that comes with it for sure. Like, it's a human condition. I get it. And I can't, this is no longer valid. My argument is no longer valid in the current state of the industry. And I don't know what it's going to be once the strikes are resolved and what that industry is going to look like. But before the strikes, there was an insane amount of content being produced, right? So much content, but still a certain segment of this profession is struggling to make ends meet.
No, you're right.
If somebody is not, they were conditioned to work in a particular environment, but the landscape of the industry had changed prior to the strike. So the fact that they're still in the same mentality of take, there is a little bit of malicious activity happening there. You hear stories. I hear stories of younger casting directors that are coming out of these big, high volume offices that are, everybody applauds some of these casting directors. And you hear these stories, how they walk on red carpets taking credit for their associates' work without even acknowledging the level of work that went into that this particular casting director didn't do a damn thing.
Yeah.
Like those things, like it's not my story to tell, so I can't be the one to do it. But I think it's like knowing that is happening every single day. And that is what is hitting us over the head into the ground over and over again. And that's the thing that pisses me off. Listen, I grew up in like my parents are immigrants. I grew up watching them break their backs building a business. I get like the small business mentality. Everybody should have the ability to run their business. But at this point in time for casting directors, it's this idea of like equitable access. It's not even that, we couldn't be as good as Bialy Thomas. Bialy Thomas, wonderful. We could be just as good at them, but we're not even getting a shot to try.
Yeah, we have no chance. I know.
Yeah.
That's my TED Talk.
No, I will say, and the one other thing I do want to say just at this point, and then we'll move on to something fun because I have a fun question for you. But
Okay, great.
I might have to go get more wine before I ask you though.
This is so funny, you guys. I love it.
I will say just to end that because and it goes back to, I'm not sure you listened to it, Amanda, but like we had a Cannes episode or a film festival episode, and it's one of those things where like I met so many producers in Cannes and they're like, why haven't we worked with you, Jen? And it's one of those things where I'm like, because you don't know about me, because all you do is hire the same people. But let me educate you as to why I'm amazing, and I will actually cast your projects rather than hiring an associate to do it. And it's one of those things where I do believe that's part of the change is like the more we can get out there and like educate these people, because as soon as I like help them understand that they're part of the problems too, and like making them understand what's going on, then the producers are like, oh my gosh, yeah, like, like I literally had a story where like a producer pulled out his phone and he was like, oh, here's my list of like casting directors, and he's like, only like one of them on it, and it is a younger casting dress, it's a younger one, and he's like, and the other ones I don't really like, and I was like, and he's like, tell me who you want, like tell me who I should hire, and I was like Jessica Sherman, like it's one of those, yeah, and well, and to be fair, he's like, well, of course, if I have anything in the UK, I'll hire you. And I'm like, yeah, I'll still do it in the US too. But also, if that's a hookup for some people, like where you think I'm only UK and I can't cast you, then happily I'll give the job to somebody of the younger generation. But it's like the more we can educate, because part of it is the studio problem where like if a studio is like, here's your 5 names you can choose from, then that's all they're ever going to know. But as soon as we can create these relationships and these friendships with producers on a higher level, there is an education level involved that then we can maybe change some things a little bit more.
You know what else I'm hearing in that too is I'm hearing that you've had a mindset change, like shift for yourself. Because like I hear you say, like you were walking up to people and being like, you should be hiring me. You know what I mean? It's like we were all of us, I can tell you with certainty that like we don't have those personalities. Like typically we're very like, because they've been that the idea of that has been beaten out of us. Like, no, you will do the job the way I tell you to do the job. You will not say anything. You will not. I mean, I remember, I won't name names, but I remember being at a wrap party for one of the big shows I worked on. And the people that I was working for physically blocked me out of a conversation with one of the producers. Like they were standing there having a conversation with him and physically blocking me from being able to participate in that conversation. It was at the Grove. And to the point where I was like standing back there, just like listening, and I was looking around and no one was talking to me. And I was just like, I'm just going to go. And I just turned around and left. And I like started crying before I got to my car. Like, and I had valeted, and the valet guy was like, are you okay? And I was like, yes. But like, I didn't stand up for myself. I didn't insert myself. I didn't say, oh, hey, yeah, I'd love to be a part of this conversation. You know what I mean? Because like it's been that's been beaten out of us. So it's a real, and
Mm-hmm.
I could cry right now thinking about it. Like it's a real mindset shift for us too. Like we need to relearn how to move through the space with confidence in ourselves
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and,
And I will say, I
with a
think
sense
part
of,
of it's come from me being over here because it is done a bit different in the UK.
yeah,
But I also have a friend group who, because in the States, I will say all my casting friends and people I came up in the industry, as much as I love them, they were all very similarly minded, where you just kind of like sit in the back, you don't say anything, you don't like push yourself, like you only answer if you're being talked to. And that's, again, how
yeah,
I was raised in the industry as well. All my bosses were like,
yeah,
you don't talk unless you're spoken to. And I was like,
that's
okay.
right.
And then coming here, I've had two amazing friends, one who's a producer and then also one who's an actress, who the producer, even just the other day, she called me. She's like, hey, you want to meet me in central London and go to a meeting with a production company? She's like, I'm pitching my shows, but you should just sit there and like be in on it and show them how awesome
Oh,
you are. And I was like, yes. And I was like, throwing my clothes on and I'm like, I can take the tube in quick, like get in. And it's like, and she sat there and she was like, and she's, again, the most amazing person. And she just like sat there and she's like, and here's my shows, but also you should know Jen. Jen, tell them all about what you do and like why
oh,
you're such a great casting director. And they've
oh,
created this like 6 months here for me has done a whirlwind of like my self-confidence and like speaking to people, because it's like once you start talking about everything you've done in not a conceited way, but just like, this is what I've done, you actually sit there and you're like, I'm really fucking good. Like I can do this. Like, you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
it's one of those things that's like, and I always say, I'm like, I'm not conceited. I'm so sorry. Don't take it that way. And they're like, stop. Like
yeah,
you earn this right to say like,
yeah.
I did all this and this is why you should hire me for your future projects. And I walked away from that meeting feeling like, one, when is a producer ever taking you on just like, yeah, let's go pitch some projects together. And like, you
Wow.
know, and she even said, she's like, it'd be awesome. Like if I'm pitching something and they come back, like, who do you see? Then you can like interject. And I'm like, sure. But I think that's kind of cool because I'm constantly being told here. And then my friend who's an actress, she's always like, Jen, own it. Like just own who you are, like own what you've done and put it out there, because the worst they can do is say, no, not for us. But also like the minute you start owning your accomplishments, then you start believing it and then you project that
Mm.
confidence. And then when you do randomly meet somebody who can, help you in some way or help get you a job, then they're like, oh, she knows what she's doing. Like, even if they don't know you, there's just like that confidence.
Yeah, what a wonderful human being though. Like that's the kind of human being I aspire to be too. Like they have to have such a, profound character that you're like, I want to help this person and I'm going and also fellow like female filmmaker, like let me lift you
Mm-hmm.
up instead of like push you down and silence you. Like I think there's a big shift happening right now though in our
Mm-hmm.
industry in general. Like things are going to be different on the other side of this. For everybody, and I hope for the better. And I hope that I am so inspired by that, Jen. Like I hope that I can remember that when I'm in my next situation and think, well, I'm just going to do what Jen would do here. What would Jen do? And Jen would be like,
WWJD.
Jen would be like, hey, I'm great. You should hire me. And that's going to be what I do next time. God bless you. That's incredible. Wow. All right.
We're
Ask
getting
me your question.
bracelets.
Ask me your question.
We're
Okay,
getting
can we
WWJD
pause?
bracelets. That's it.
Yes,
I'm so, like, can you
WJD
see how
bracelet.
red my face? Uh,
Can I get a little
I
bit more
will.
wine? Can I have 2 minutes or like 1 minute,
Yeah.
Yes.
30 seconds?
Yes.
I'll be
So
right
Same,
back.
same,
I'm
same.
so warm because my office is like a little like offshoot of our house. So it's like 90 degrees here in Atlanta. It's so hot. And I'm a little, look, you guys, if you can see, they've both stepped away. I'm the only person on screen right now. But if you can see, I've literally only had this much wine.
I will say this
That's it.
because I'm
Red face.
gonna edit some of this out anyways.
Yeah.
But I'm supposed to get on that 3 o'clock, but they haven't confirmed yet.
I know I have a 5:30 that I'm supposed to be on, but it's still recording. Yes. We'll wrap it up here as soon as Jen's back.
I broke out the limoncello again.
Whoa.
That means I'm gonna get real tipsy.
Woo! Okay.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Are we ready?
Okay. Yes.
So my fun question is, tell us who your, Jess and I love talking about our talent crushes. Who is your talent crush and why?
Oh no, gosh. You wait till the end to ask when everyone's had a drink or two. That's hilarious. Wow. Oh, my entire life I've grown up like having these intense talent crushes. I mean, starting in high school, right? Because I was doing theater in high school and I was a freshman. So I went to a performance arts high school as well. I went to like a regular high school where I did theater. And then my junior year, I auditioned for and got into like a fame high school. So I went to my regular high school in the morning and then the performance program at the other school downtown in the afternoon. And my talent crushes has started at 13, I would say 14 when I was a freshman. I was a freshman and the guy he was a senior and the guy he was like playing the lead. Oh my God, I hope he listens to this. He was playing the leads in all of the main stage shows at Kaufman, and I was obsessed with him. And he was like dating a fellow senior, and like never going to date me. Like I'm like a nerdy 14-year-old, whatever. And he was incredible, and he was such an incredible actor. His name is Jeremy Bobb, and he's a working actor in New York, right now. He lives in New York, and he's actually on he's in a lot of shows that you probably have watched. He's still so good. You guys, he was really, really good when he was 18. I identified that in him at 18 years old, 17 years old, 16 probably. No, wait, 17, 18, because I was 14, 13, 14. So Jeremy, if you're listening, I was obsessed with you. And
little did you know you had quite the fan.
I was so obsessed with him. Then he went to Otterbein, and I remember going to see him in one show at Otterbein. He was in Blood Brothers, and that was one of the many shows he did at Otterbein. And I was just like, I was like, oh my God, this face. And now he's
okay. Who are you loving these days? Who's on
keep talking about Jeremy Bobb.
I
know. Okay, so oh God, who do I love? I don't know. There's so many. I don't know. It's hard to. It's hard. Who?
You're muted, Jess. You're muted.
Jess is muted.
The limoncello's hitting.
Guys. We've named Pedro Pascal. We've named. I'm obsessed with Pablo Schreiber. That's truth. Who else? What were yours, Jen?
I mean, I could just start naming like tons and tons and tons of actors because I'm like seriously obsessed with so many actors. Yeah. Like they're like so stunning, What
about an interaction with one of those stunning actors?
I mean, I had an interaction with Pedro at one point. Chrissy and I did. We hired him on something, and we literally ran into him as we were like coming onto set, and we were like, long time ago. It's just like,
I will say, mine right.
Yeah,
mine right now is very apropos because we're recording it on the release date, but is Cillian Murphy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I just like. If I ever see him, I don't think I could handle it. I just think I'd be like, I'm so in awe of your talent. Like he's so good that I just don't even think I could handle it.
He was at the last subtitle that I went to. He was presenting one of the awards, and he was so lovely and very ground. I also couldn't form sentences, but it was impactful. He's great.
I mean, we can say like, so when we were doing Walking Dead, so obviously you heard the story about how Andrew Lincoln got the job, but John Bernthal got Shane, and that was like one of his first jobs. And again, just a reminder, my desk is in the hallway. And so like the day after he was officially like got the job, he came in to say like thank you to Sharon and Sherry, and I think that they weren't there yet or something, or they had left already for the day. And Gohar, I think Gohar was there. It was just Gohar and I again. And my desk is in the hallway. She's in her office, and he walks around the corner like to the hallway that my desk is in, and I remember him being like, ah! And I was like, he saw, I was like, I went like this, and I like popped my head over, and I was like, ah! And I was like, and he was like, and like he like ran to me, And he picked me up and he spun me around in a circle and he was like, holy shit. I was like, congratulations, honey. I mean, he literally picked me up off my feet and swung me around in a circle. He was so
my
excited.
God.
It was adorable. And I was like, whew, wow, you're amazing. And I'm a big fan of his and all of his work. Obviously, you know, he's in The Bear too, and he's excellent.
Yeah.
And he's, you know,
Mhm.
were we talking about The Bear? No, we weren't talking about The Bear. Jeremy Allen White. Sure, let's talk about him.
I literally,
For
There's
guys,
so
John,
many.
though,
that's
yeah.
crazy. I literally just started watching The Bear today. I haven't watched it, and I'm hearing all the hoopla and stuff. So I was like, God, I need to watch this. So I was like, I
Yeah.
had gotten home from running some errands, and I was like, I'm gonna sit and watch it. And I'm like maybe 5 episodes in. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got too
It's,
stressed out by it and I paused.
yeah, we've also took a bit of a pause. It's like a little bit chaotic in moments. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, Jeremy is fantastic. Excellent.
Yeah.
Who else? Oh, Paul Mescal. Stop.
Oh, I
talked
saw
about him
him
too.
in Streetcar Named Desire earlier this year, and he was so
Oh
good.
my God, you got to see a streetcar? That's incredible.
Mhm. Like when it was in the small theater too. It was very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. Who have you guys gotten to like read that you were like in awe of?
Boyd Holbrook.
Ooh,
That was really
Mm.
cool. He's great. We spent the whole day with him on Star Wars. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that.
amazing. Oh, you might want to cut that out.
But
We'll beep
anyways,
it.
Boyd Holbrook. But yeah,
He's
we
good.
did
I
get to
haven't read
spend
him
the
in
whole day with
forever.
him. He's great. Yeah. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, I have a crazy story about
I
him, but I have to say it offline. I can't say it online. I'll
oh,
tell you
Same.
I
offline.
think I know your story.
No, I can't. I
Not to be said
literally can't.
on
I
the
can't
air.
say it. I can't. I'll get in like
No,
legal
no, no,
trouble.
no, no. You shouldn't. I find it's the same story that I know. Um,
I'm trying to think who I've liked
I think
recently.
I feel like I got to read with Tatiana Maslany, and I was like, oh my God, like she was like looking into my soul, and I was like,
yeah.
wow. You know, it's really amazing, and I've said this over the years to other people, but like when someone like that walks into your space and you can just feel their presence and like you know immediately that they're a star and you can't really pinpoint why or like identify what it is specifically that gives them that like star quality. They just are. That is
Mhm.
unbelievable. That's like it's indescribable. And that's happened a few times over the years and I'm just like I'm knocked off my feet every time by it.
Yeah.
It's
I think
unbelievable.
we had that with he was never in the room. He self-taped Benedict Cumberbatch when we were doing Star Trek Into Darkness. Because we had seen so many guys and we were actually going a completely we were sort of going in the traditional Ricardo Montalban direction. And we weren't finding anybody and it was the most fascinating thing because he had done a self-tape. He was literally on an iPhone in his friend's kitchen at the kitchen table and he brought us all to tears because it was so many men had come in and read for that role and everybody was doing this very arch character and very mustache twirly and it's very easy because the dialogue lends itself to go in that direction. But he gave such humanity to that character because we all know that even for every villain there is, that they're not the villain of their own story. They have reason for everything that they do. And that was like the most powerful thing that I had seen because I was a few years into my casting career when I got to work on that movie. And that was an incredible thing to see someone just completely change what you're looking for.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really does. Like it's like that's the joy of the job. You know, that's when those moments are when you're like, "Oh God, this is it. This is why I'm here." You know, to get to see that and experience that, like especially experiencing it like in a firsthand situation, it's unbelievable. I will say like Tracy Ellis Ross, like when she came in to test for Blackish and just I wasn't even in the room because I had to step out to handle a situation that was happening on one of our other projects. And I wasn't in the room with her. And Alexis came out and she was like, I was like, how was she? And she was like, unbelievable. Like there's no question. All these other women were incredible, but she was like, she blew everyone out of the water. She's like, her, um, just as a human being, she's so sparkly. And I don't even know if there's another word for it, but like the joy that emanates from the core of her person that is contagious when you're in a space with her and you're like, who is this? Like, what is this? Like, and you would just immediately feel better when you're around her. Like, what a gift. Like, what an absolute gift, to be able to inspire joy in that capacity, just as a human. Like, she's just one of, I mean, I was completely blown away by her every time I got to be in a space with her. And we would go to the table reads every week. And I was just like excited to just go sit behind her and absorb some of her magic, because she was like truly incredible. Love her. But yeah, I mean, eh, it's that's the true gift. I would say that's the true gift of this job is to be in the presence of these incredible artists um to get to see the work firsthand. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been on set. Like even in comedy, like on comedies, I've been on set and been in such like awe of the situation that I was witnessing that I was like brought to tears because I was just like, I cannot believe that I'm here in this moment. I'm witnessing this. I'm allowed, like someone gave me the like ability to be, can't believe it. I feel so lucky to be here and to be witnessing this. But really it's when it's not even like about a famous person. It's like when you see excellent work in your presence, it's um it's stunning. Like and stunning like the actual definition of like being stunned. Like you have like a physical response to you're like, holy shit, how did they do that? Like how having like um being affected by someone in that capacity is the addictive aspect of this, certainly.
Yeah. I think it can happen. It has happened, I will say, through self tapes for sure. But I think that's what I miss the most about being in the room is like the actual physical reaction of like the
Yeah.
breathtaking element of seeing someone's performance,
Hmm.
like that visceral feeling that you get. I miss that so much. And and also we have some theater in LA, but it's not like
Yeah.
an insane amount that I can go and go see somebody on stage and have a guarantee of having that feeling again, you
Hmm.
know? And so, and I
Yeah.
think that like you get to be part of something so special and so unique that most people can't even imagine what
Yeah.
we get to do when we get to do it. And so it's like,
I
I miss it so much.
I know. I will say I did a Zoom session for that job that I helped Jenny on. Jenny do. She brought me on to do local casting for a film. And when we did a Zoom session and when I was reading with one of these girls, I was like, I had full body chills. Like I was like almost, it was like it's like a horror. It's like not to cry. There's no reason to cry, but I was like fully moved by her. I was like, she's incredible. And it happened through the screen, so it's possible. But yeah, I felt that so intensely last year, Jess, that I called my friend Oscar and I was like, meet in Allie and Sibby. I was like, meet me in New York, you guys. Let's go see some shows. And we saw like 6 shows in like 4 days because we were just like, we just need to be inspired, And now's not the time for that because no one's making enough money to do that right now. But hopefully that will be reinstated as like an annual trip to go see a theater because that is, you're right. That's where there's like true magic in the air inside a theater. And that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So our last question for you, because we're pushing 2 hours here and someone has to get up early. So
Yes. Yes.
so if the world was ending and you only had one cocktail to cheers the end of the world to, what would it be?
Oh man. I'm like so sensitive to alcohol that I like don't really drink very often. It's like a hard question for me. You know what? I would say in this moment, I would say an Aperol Spritz, because it is like a core memory for me from, we went and shot a film in Italy last year for my friend Juan Pablo de Pace. And I met some of the most incredible actors who are going to be my friends for the rest of my life on that shoot. And it was 5.5 weeks. And that was the drink of choice when we would go out at night. And it's, just the orangeness and the, just the smell and everything. It's very nostalgic. So I would probably choose that just to have those memories pour back in right before the end.
Love it.
I love that we're talking about the apocalypse. Yes, let's end that on that
To be fair,
note.
we ask everybody.
Yeah. But it feels particularly real in this moment. So
it does. It does. Well, you guys are incredible. This was literally so much fun. Thank you so much for having me. I think you're both fantastic and wonderful and inspiring, and I can't wait to talk to you again.
I will say thank you so much. I will say also that you are our first episode that goes beyond an hour, and I'm not surprised that it's you, but I'm also so happy that it's you.
Maybe you have to split me in two, because I don't know. That seems like a lot of listening.
Edit down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if the audience is still sticking around, I'm really impressed, and thank you for listening, I guess, because here we are. For the record, I just want to show you, this is my first glass, so I've actually only had maybe this much wine.
Wow.
And if you can see how red my face. I'm a really cheap date, so invite me out.
I love it.
All right, my loves. Thank you so much again. It was awesome, and I'll talk to y'all real soon.
Sounds good.
Cheers. All right, cheers.
Cheers.
If you love listening as much as we love sharing, click subscribe on our YouTube channel or find us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thanks for listening.